see this team that dominated America. And at that time, what you have to understand is there was hardly any live television. If you went to a game, there would be 100,000 people there, dressed to the nines, dressed like you're all dressed tonight, there for an occasion, not worrying about who was going to be on TV or anything like that. So looking at that training camp and those people and those players, all returning from the war, for a 9-year-old kid, was really an interesting thing. And then I want to go on to 1947. The NFL had not broken the color line. And so therefore the Los Angeles Rams, which came from Cleveland, went to LA in 1947. And the Coliseum said, there will be no team that plays here in the NFL unless they're African, they call it then black players, but African-American players. If there is nothing there will be no deal for the Rams to go there. So I can remember that day really forever. Practice field, Los Angeles, before the big exhibition game. The Rams were all white. Their quarterback was Bob Waterfield. His wife was Jane Russell, who was the Marilyn Monroe, or you name it, of today. Standing on the sideline next to me was Jane Russell. Standing next to her, which I did not put in the book, I believe was Howard Hughes. And they were having this discussion about her bra. Now, when you're 10 years old, you know, anything that says bra, you say, okay, I want to hear this story. And she had just made a movie called The Outlaw, where they had to get it by the censors to decide what the whole situation was. Then, in the middle of this whole thing, two magnificent athletes walked out on the field. Kenny Washington and one of the stars of Spartacus, Woody Strode. Anybody that's seen Spartacus will remember that famous scene with Kirk Douglas and what happened with Woody Strode, who he kills in the end. And I looked at them, and I looked at the white players, and I looked at these two magnificent athletes going out there, and I said to myself, that's the future of pro football. And again, when you look at it, and anybody, maybe Jonathan, maybe Bob has seen it, there is a newsreel of Kenny Washington and somebody who broke the color line in baseball and was probably a better running back. And his name was Jackie Robinson. The UCLA Bruins of Kenny Washington and Jackie Robinson were some of the best players in the world. They broke the color line. They changed it all. So as a young boy, there's some of the things that I saw. Now we will go to the beginning of the book, which is October 11th, 1959. After the sudden death game in New York, the NFL had made it. Bert Bell on that day was the most powerful person in America. October the 11th, Franklin Field, Philadelphia. Eagles versus the Steelers, two teams he used to own. On the field where Bert Bell threw the first pass in the Rose Bowl in history. Last 2 minutes of the game, Upton Bell, the wonderful spoiled son, having a great time, playing basketball, not really caring much about what went on in life, put on his binoculars and looked across the field. And the Eagles were driving with Tommy McDonald, who's recently passed away, and Norm Van Brocklin, and Bobby Lane, another Hall of Famer. They're driving for the winning touchdown. And the person sitting next to me said, "You better get your binoculars, there's somebody down in the end zone." So I looked through the binoculars, and it was my father. And what I tried to do is rush across the field, and like all kids with their fathers or their mothers, see if you could save them, which is no way you can. I got there, and the only irony, and I was telling George about this the other day, is that when I got there, they had brought the oxygen up to save his life from the Steelers bench, and they put it over his face, and it did not work. And somebody said, same goddamn Steelers, they can't win on the field or off the field. And that's what happened. That day, he was gone. It changed my life forever. As everybody in this room probably knows, there's something in all of your lives that will change you forever. Later that week, just before the funeral and the burial, I'm sitting at home and I get a call. And it's from the Philadelphia National Bank. And they said, the deal is off. And I said, what is that deal? And they said, your father had secretly bought the Philadelphia Eagles back, the team that he had lost. He was due to sign it on Wednesday, but we cannot honor the agreement. So if he had lived 2 more days, I'd be the spoiled kid in Philadelphia, not just the ordinary guy here. And that's where it started. The whole idea of that trip, that would start there. No choice, you couldn't go back. The Eagles were for sale, and it was on to the only choice I had, which was the owner of the Baltimore Colts, who was the closest thing to the man called Howard Hughes. Carol Rosenblum was a very close friend to Joe Kennedy and many of the other people. He said, if you want to come to the Colts, which I did in 1960, a kid out of college, and see something, and it's funny, all the people that might remember now, well, they do, the Patriots from 2000 to 2018 ain't the Patriots or the Colts of those days. The love affair was different. I got in a car, I drove to Baltimore. In those days, when you were a kid, leaving home is a lot different